So this is the Pentax Papilio II Binocular, one of my favorite and indeed most used compacts of all time. This package below here comes from Ricoh Imaging, which I know could only mean one thing. They've decided to send me their brand new Pentax Papilio III Binoculars, a set that I've been looking and dying to get my hands on ever since their first announcement. So much so that when this box arrived, I immediately ripped it open and I was about to take a look inside and I went, whoa, hold on, let's rather do this on camera. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you my initial thoughts and opinions as I unbox and take a look at the brand new Pentax Papilio III Binoculars for the very first time. And I'm going to start right now. Hello, my name is Jason and welcome to Best Binocular Reviews. So as I mentioned up at the start there, along with the Steiner Wildlife 10x26, which just happens to be the very first binocular that I ever purchased, so well before BVR was even thought of, more than 25 years ago now. The Papilio II is one of my favorite and most used compacts. Therefore, with the announcement of the new Papilio III, I was obviously super excited to get my hands on a set. I reached out to Pentax and they kindly agreed to send me one. Obviously, when this box arrived, as you can see, I thought that's a big compact binocular. Anyway, I was so excited, I ripped it open and I was about to go through and have a look at it, what was inside. But I thought I'd rather do it on camera. So I have opened the box, but as you can see, what was inside was two mini packages, which are still sealed. And I assume what's inside is Pentax have kindly sent me one of each configuration. So a 6.5 by 25 by 21 and the 8.5 by 21. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open them up and just go through my unfiltered and completely unscripted thoughts and opinions on them, which I think hopefully will be interesting. And then from there, once I've had time to obviously use and test them out, compare them to the old set and to other compacts that I have, I'll be writing a full review. Right, okay, so I've just repositioned the camera up there to give us a better angle. As you can see, I'm opening up this sealed bag for the very first time. Sorry for the noise. I'm going to take a look at what's inside. Well, there is a case that is very familiar for me. So as you can see, this is my Pentax Papilio II case, and there's the Pentax Papilio III case. So I guess my first thought or my first impressions are the fact that the old case is pretty much identical to the new one. And because I've been using this old case for quite a few years now, I can therefore pretty much vouch for the longevity of the case, so in terms, and I have no issues at all with the actual design and how it's worked for me over the years. So therefore, all I'm going to say is the fact that they haven't changed it is not a bad thing in any way. So firstly, you can see it has a belt loop on the back side of the case. This can be extremely useful. I don't actually use it that often, purely because I don't often wear a belt. But if I did, it would make for a very good way to carry the binocular on your left or your right hip and make it very easy to access the binoculars inside. You just open up the lid and pull out the binoculars. This way, not only is your hands are free to carry on and do what you want the rest of the time when you're not glassing, but at the same time, the binoculars are really easy and accessible at any time. It almost acts like a little miniature bino harness, if you were. The next thing just to mention, and as you probably heard the first time I did it, when you open it up, as with the old one, it comes with a Velcro strap. Now, this one has been opened and closed quite a few times now, and as you can see, once again, it's lasted, and the Velcro is still very strong and works really well. That's a good thing because obviously it means that your binoculars are nice and safe and secure inside. But on the one slight downside, I would have to say about Velcro straps in general, and this one in particular, whilst actually I don't think it is quite as loud as the old one, it makes a lot of noise. So therefore, if you're stalking sort of timid birds or wildlife or things like that, you're trying to get nice and close, when you reach for your binoculars and open them, you have to be pretty careful not to make too much noise and therefore frighten it away. One way I often get away around that is to just leave the case sort of like that, which as you can see this does quite nicely, and you will just open it up and pull out your binoculars as and when you need it. So yeah, the case itself, as I said, is a really nice material. The stitching's all excellent, and as you can see, it lasts a long time. You can see on the older one, it's sort of cracked up a little bit more, But even so, this is quite a few years into its lifespan now, and it's still performing as well as it was when I first got it. So let's open up the case now. And I'll just take out the binoculars and put them aside for now and just finish off this bit. The padding inside the case for a lightweight compact like this is perfectly adequate. It's not the most padded case I've ever come across, but at the same time, the amount of padding for what is a small, lightweight binocular is perfectly fine. What I do like is this soft felt-like material inside. It keeps your binoculars nice and clean, no scratching and things like that, but also the lenses itself. So I'm pretty sure, just looking, yes, just like the old Pentax Papilio IIs, the binocular doesn't come with an objective lens cover. So quite common for compacts not to have lens covers, especially objective lens covers. And that's because the manufacturers, I think, assume for the most part you're going to use the case as the actual cover for the lenses. So as long as you keep I'll just use the old set here, which as you can see still fits perfectly within the new case. The lenses over here are going to be nicely protected inside the case, as good as any lens cover you would find. In fact, in some ways, it's better protected. Right, so overall, the case is a great thing, and I'm not going to dwell too much more on the case. So there you go. Right, okay, so let's move on to the binoculars. Okay, so for comparison, let's go back to looking at the old Papilio II versus the Papilio III. As you can see, to my eyes, completely, they look exactly the same, apart from the color differentiation. So the old Papilio II had I can't remember if it came in different color variations, but the one I had over here is gray and with some black highlights. This version over here is all black, and I do know that Pentax have also made a sort of an olive greeny color one. Okay, so yeah, I've managed to pick out the 8.5 by 21 configuration, which is by chance is exactly the same as my original Pentax Papilio II. So these two binoculars are a direct comparison, and just looking around at it now, to me, they look identical in terms of the actual body shape and build. I cannot see any differences. So, as with the case, I think overall this is not a bad thing. The fact that this is one of my favorite compacts of all time and I use it a lot means it's comfortable, I enjoy using it, it's easy to carry about and functional. So the fact that Pentax have obviously recognized this, they haven't tried to change too much. In fact, to my eyes, they haven't changed anything at all from what I can see, means they are going on the tried and tested route, which is generally a good thing. I don't like change for the sake of change, as it were. So there's not going to be a lot for me to talk about in terms of my initial thoughts and opinions, once again, because I have quite a lot of experience with this binocular. What I will say is I do know from the little research that I've done, what they have changed is what we can't see. So the body itself now is weather protected, whereas the original Papilio and the Papilio II weren't protected in any way. Now, what kind of difference does this make? To be fair, as I said, I've used this a lot and in mostly good weather conditions, and I wouldn't say I've ever gone out in pouring rain and used them in any way like that. But at the same time, I'm sure there's been times where it's been a bit misty or perhaps a little bit of light rain. I'm sure I've used it in cases like that and never had a problem. The fact that Pentax have now moved on to making these now water protected just, I guess, adds a layer of further protection, or you feel more confident taking them out in bad weather. Now, just to point out, they are not waterproof. They're not fully waterproofed. So I think the design that Pentax have with the way the eye cups come and close together, it's just meant that they can't actually put seals in them that can make them completely waterproof. So I would not suggest submersing them in water or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure you can go out and use them in reasonably heavy rain and it'll be fine. A thing to mention, however, is because they're not fully sealed, obviously Pentax have not been able to fill the internal cavity with a completely moistureless gas as many other modern binoculars that are fully waterproof do. This moistureless gas protects the internal lens elements from fogging up, which can happen when you take the binocular from one extreme temperature to another. So for instance, if you're going out from a really warm house out into the cold environment. Now, once again, I'll go back to the fact that I've used these for a lot. in winter and summer, and I'm sure there have been occasions where they could have fogged up, but I never, it never happened to me, and I didn't notice. So I won't say it won't happen, but I haven't had a problem with this original pair, well, the Series 2 pair. So I'm assuming the same will be for these. Once again, obviously this first unboxing video is just my initial thoughts. I'm going to go and give these a test. Also, just to mention that I did read that another aspect that they've changed with the Pentax Papilio 3s versus the 2 is they've added outer layer coating on this glass surface on the outside. It repels water, whereas these ones didn't have that. And they've also added that to the ocular lenses. Again, on the full review, I'll go into this into much more detail. But I do know that that's one other difference that these two binoculars have apart from each other. On top of that, I do know that they've added what they call an HD coating. So both binoculars are fully multi-coated, but I do know with the Papilio 3 now they've added an HD coating onto some of the lens elements. Apparently more light is able to transfer through the binoculars and in a better way. And I think it's supposed to improve brightness and clarity. Obviously, I'm going to be checking those out in the full review. One of the things that I really liked about the Pentax Papilio 2, which I can already see, is a feature of the Papilio 3, is the way that the neck strap attaches to the body. I'm pretty sure this is the old neck strap. It's going to just fit straight in there. Look at that. So the thing that I really like about this neck strap is just how easily it attaches to the binocular itself. And as you can see, the old neck strap works just as well with the new Pentax Papilio 3. The fact that it's so easy to take on and off, for me, is a huge advantage in that I don't always like to go with a neck strap. And so to be able to just remove it as and when I want to is awesome. I also love the way it connects to the binocular because, as you can see, it swings right around and there's plenty of freedom of movement. The neck strap itself is pretty simple. It's just made from nylon. It's got a Pentax logo sewn into it over there, but apart from that, it's a small, lightweight neck strap, which for a compact is exactly what you want. If you have a big, bulky one with loads of padding, it just gets in the way and it's unnecessary. Another thing to point out and mention, just getting confused with all the bags over here now. If I put this binocular into its case, it doesn't have its own strap or shoulder strap, so should you not want to carry it on the hip, what you can do is just use the neck strap that goes through the sides of the case like that. This is where you do have to remember to close the case, but as you can see now, the case itself has a strap and you can actually carry it around your shoulder or through your neck or whatever, which way you want. All right, okay, so the next thing I just quickly wanted to mention was the ocular lens cover. As you once again, you can see it's exactly the same. These are simple, functional, and to be honest, I don't actually carry them around with me that often. But once again, I'll return to the fact that the case itself does act quite well as a lens cover, and that's pretty much how I rely on keeping the ocular lenses and indeed the objective lenses as clean as possible. Okay, so next up in terms of the outer features, I just wanted to quickly touch on is the eye relief and the actual eye cups themselves, which I think for a compact binocular, once again, are truly excellent, especially within this price range. The first thing I just want to point out is just how positively and how nicely the action works. So as you can hear, it clicks into either an intermediate stop point or the two extremes. Now, as you can see on the camera, hopefully over there, there's no free play whatsoever. Quite often, especially with lower costing binoculars, the eye cup will have a little bit of free play in that, which can get a little bit annoying. The next thing to point out is just how much eye relief you get. You can see, putting them side by side here once again, the eye relief is the same between the old and the new, which is at 15 millimeters, which should be just enough for most people who wear glasses. I do sometimes wear glasses and I have tested these binoculars. So basically what the eye cups do, for those who don't know, is it positions your eyes at the correct distance behind the ocular lenses in order to get the full field of view. So obviously with glasses in the way, you have to minimize that, twist down the eye cups, and then your glasses sits over there and obviously take up that space. For me, and my glasses and my shape of face, and by fully twisting down the eye cups, I am actually able to still use the binocular and get the full field of view. Obviously, there'll be some variance depending on your glasses and your particular face shape and things like that. But I think most people should be able to just about get away with it if you wear glasses. Right, okay, so the next thing I just wanted to quickly touch on was the actual focus wheel and focusing. Just comparing the two again, the actual mechanism itself feels identical. The actual focus wheel looks identical, and I'm pretty sure is exactly the same in terms of its dimensions and shape and everything like that. Now, overall, this is once again is a good thing, although I do have a few slight niggles just to mention. So the good things will go first. As I said, the focus mechanism itself, really nice and smooth. The shape of the binocular, combined with the fact it's positioning and everything, it makes it nice and easy to reach, and you can turn it really easy with one finger. The fact that its profile sticks within the binocular is a good thing, and in general day-to-day use, it's perfectly fine. The one caveat I have is winter. So like now, when I go out testing that next week, especially if I'm going out for a long period of time, the conditions outside today I think are not going above 0 for the whole day. So of course I'm going to be wearing gloves and thick winter gloves. So when you have a small focus wheel like this, like many compacts, especially Poro Prism contacts do, when you've got thick winter gloves and a low profile design so it doesn't stick out of the body very much, it can be sometimes a little bit more tricky to, one, locate the focus wheel when you're not looking at it, and two, just make fine adjustments. Now, these are very minor sort of complaints is maybe the wrong word, maybe a little too strong, but just points of observation. With gloves, this will not be as easy to use as a binocular that has a larger focus wheel. Also take into account the gearing. So for a very small focus wheel like this, it only takes a small movement to actually turn the wheel because you're closer and quite a long way. Whereas if you had a larger diameter wheel, and I'm going to sort of exaggerate, you'd have to turn it, you'd have to move your finger a lot more to make that same movement. Therefore, especially with gloves on, if you're trying to make very fine adjustments to your focus, a larger wheel can facilitate it to be just that little bit more simple. So the rubber armor on these binoculars is awesome in terms of how it feels in the hands, and the grip levels, because it's quite a grippy type of rubber, in those regards is really good. The downside to it is it collects dust so quickly, especially this black one over here. I can see that the dust is collecting, and I'm not sure if it's getting picked up on the camera there, I hope not. But I do know that when I go and photograph this binocular a little later for the review, I'm going to have to spend ages removing all the little specks of dust from it so that I can get some nice photographs. So for me personally, it's a little annoying. If that bugs you, that's just one thing I would like to point out over there. But in terms of the actual armoring itself, these binoculars have been used quite a lot. As you can see, they still look great in my opinion. And the rubber itself hasn't got tacky over time, which can happen sometimes with especially a softer rubber like this. So far, that hasn't happened to this Papilio. Right, okay, so then also next, I just want to speak a little bit about the diopter adjustment ring on the binoculars. As you can see, once again, they're exactly the same on the old version versus the new. So the diopter allows you to independently focus, slightly change the focus on one side of the binocular to the other, just in case your eyesight on your left and right eyes is slightly different. It has a slight ratchet system to it, as does the old one. I think the old one was a little bit more obvious. You can hear it over there. The new one is a little bit finer, which I would prefer it to be a little bit more positive like the old one was, because I quite like the ratchets in that if your setting isn't exactly neutral or doesn't match up with one of the markings on the binocular, you can just remember that it was 5 clicks to the right. And therefore, if you were sharing your binocular with someone or it gets moved by accident, something like that, it makes it really easy to, without having to recalibrate the binoculars, you just remember 5 clicks to the right and there you go. Right, okay, so opening up the second package that I got, Pentax have sent me the other color, and yes, so instead of the 8.5 by 21, we also have the 6.5 by 21 configuration, which is awesome because I'll be able to try out 2 different configurations and discuss the changes that it makes and who would suit each one best, or what type of use would suit each one best. So yes, as you can see, the new Pentax Papilio 3 will come in these 2 color alternatives. So you have an olive green with black and the full black. But once you can see once again, and no surprise, the actual body shape and the design and everything like that is exactly the same between the 8.5 and the 6.5. So another quick thing to mention about the Pentax Papilio, and I guess it's the main reason that sets this binocular apart from pretty much anything else on the market, is the fact that it has a close focusing range of 50 centimeters or 1.6 feet, which is exactly the same on the Papilio II. Now, Pentax have been able to achieve this by the fact that, if you can see, as I change the focus, the actual lenses themselves move within the body of the binocular. Hopefully that's coming out on the camera. I think you should be able, yeah, there we go. So you can see the actual lenses move backwards and forwards. So it changes the angle between the eyepiece, and therefore has enabled them to make this very, very close focus distance. And why this binocular becomes so useful, and one of the reasons I use it so much, is the fact that you can be looking at something at half a meter away, but then at the same time, these perform just as well as any other sort of 8 times, or if you're using the 6 times, compact binocular in terms of looking at birds off into the distance, or even, if you wanted to look at stars and things like that. Right, another thing to also mention, and something I do get asked fairly often about, is all of these binoculars come with a tripod or a thread underneath the binocular over here that enables them to be mounted very easily onto a tripod. Now, usually a binocular that you're going to mount onto a tripod is usually a very high-powered or a very heavy binocular, therefore either to make it more stable or easier to hold. So the fact that these very small, lightweight binoculars with relatively low magnifications are so obviously able to mount on a tripod is an interesting quirk about them. And I did think for a while, why would it be so obvious to be able to mount on a tripod? And one use that I do know of that a lot of people use these binoculars for are artists or people who go to galleries, but specifically artists. So for instance, because they have a very close focus range, artists who study things close up, so let's say you're an artist who draws or paints flowers and things like that, they like to be able to mount the binocular onto a tripod and then be able to observe it, and then do some sketching or painting, and then go back and look again, and back and forth without having to move the view about. So in uses like that, being able to keep your view trained on a specific point and be able to go back to it or swap the view with someone else is a reason that you would mount it onto a tripod, other than the fact that you wanted to keep the image really steady and shake-free, or the fact that the binocular was really heavy and you needed a tripod to take that weight off your hands. Right, okay, so there you have it. Basically, I'm sorry that this first impressions video is not, there weren't many first impressions, just because of the fact that I've actually used the Papilio II quite a lot, and so I have a lot of experience with it. I was kind of expecting that, but to be honest, I didn't do a huge amount of research before opening up the binoculars from the package themselves, and so I was expecting there to be some perhaps small differences in the body, but as far as I can see, this first time they are identical. They're using exactly the same materials, the same molds, everything's the same. So is this a good thing? Yes, I think generally it is a good thing. This is a great binocular, and so why would you change something just for the sake of changing it? They're very comfortable to hold, very comfortable to use. So in terms of the body and the way it functions, there would be no reason to change it. And so what I'm going to do now is, as I said, I'll go take these out and give them a full review, a full testing, and then see if the changes they have made to the optics, whether that makes much of a difference compared to the old Papilio, and obviously also compare them to other compact binoculars that I have in my stable. So I'm going to leave the video there for now and say thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers for now.